Welcome to German Chocolate, Life of a Mixed Girl. It is a long weekend, and I wanted to get another solo episode in before my next guest appears on the special series, Stunt Talk. And long weekends are times to reflect. But for me, a person that's always on a go, 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 this came almost unexpected. I had Thanksgiving off, and I thought I was going to work on Friday and then was going to have a normal weekend. But last minute, my day job, we did end up closing for Friday. And I was like, oh my God, 4 days just at home. That's going to be so weird because I need to be doing something, going on the road. I would fly somewhere, drive somewhere. But in this economy, yeah, let's just say it's a little more tricky to just do whatever you want to do. You're trying to get by, try to pay your bills while investing in your future. That means I'm taking voiceover classes, stunt classes, acting classes, any kind of business things. But it's the end of the year, so it was a good time. Almost my favorite time for this, and is reflecting on my goals. I set goals every year. I see where I'm at, if I pivoted in any way, added something, ended up pulling back in some areas, and how I might want to move forward for the next year. And it really, really, really helps. I have a whole episode on that. that whole side. I am a nerd with my Excel spreadsheets and my to-do list. Oh, I just found out ChatGPT told me about this thing called Notion page. If you love checklists and like marking things off, and you use ChatGPT to help you kind of get organized. So this is my first year that I did this. So I have all my goals, and I looked over how everything went this year, where I was last year, and I have a calendar where I have like the 3 years where I think I might want to be, which I always find tricky. I have an episode called 5 Year Plan, and that is about that. It's impossible for me to plan that far ahead because life gives me unexpected opportunities all the time, and I take them, and it might just take me another route or go on detours, all kinds of things I always talk about. And that's why I can't plan 5 years. Actually, this, if we decide to do it, and we probably will because of this 5 year plan that we're reaching the end to now. We got another about 18 months left on this technically 5 year plan, is to renew the lease on the place that we're staying. This will be the first time in my entire life to renew a lease for, well, the first and then the second time. So to be in here 3 years and to be Christmas for 3 years in one place. Usually it's like one lease and then on to the next. I owned a house that was for a year and 8 months in America. Same, I shared a house with someone that I bought in Germany as well for probably also only about a year and a half or so. I'm always on the go, and I love my life, and I love being able to do a lot of these things. So to find this place where I feel grounded while I'm doing the things I'm doing, it feels good, but it also feels like I need to move. So there are a lot of firsts, but going back to the ChatGPT thing. So this time I put everything together, and I was like, hey, ChatGPT, make a checklist for me out of this. It's basically the same thing, but I wanted the checklist boxes. Sometimes it's sneaky and it changes the words a little bit. And I was like, I like the wording, how I had it. And then it said, would you like me to put this into a Notion template? And I was like, what is that? So I looked it up, and I have it, and it's so cool because unlike some of the Word or Excel ones where there's just like a checkbox, it's just like a sound, and then it strikes it through. And you can put little small goals, like little SMART goals, under the big goals. So now, the big picture, right? Like, we all want to be financially free, working full time, the thing that we love to do. So that's like obviously the big picture. And then all the things for the year that I want to achieve. And then how am I going to achieve those things, which include taking classes, which networking events might I want to attend. This is all, planning budgetary wise too. All right, am I flying to Atlanta? Am I flying to LA, to New York? Am I taking multiple trips to Miami? That's, gas, flights, rental cars, hotels, or staying with friends. I am very, very blessed and lucky to have friends in all the major markets. It's so beautiful. I do stay in hotels, but sometimes for like a night or two, I will stay with my friends, and it's really nice. I really enjoyed. But also, as a busy mom that works a full time job and being a girlfriend, a sister, a daughter, and, having all these multiple worlds I'm trying to juggle, sometimes it is nice when I travel, and I usually don't stay really long, it's a few days, to have some time to myself in a hotel. It's like, wow, it's just like me time, even though it feels sometimes weird too. So to find that perfect sweet spot, that's why I said the 4 day weekend is such a gift. If I would have known, I would have planned. But for example, next week there's an event which, with the VME, the Veterans of in Media and Entertainment, I got to do a workshop with them. It's really cool because you apply for a lot of these things because they're free and they're cool special opportunities and events that they have, and then they pick you, for things. And there's one event coming up next week where they go to the studio for Call of Duty, where all the people are there, and you sign an NDA and give them your phone, and you can network and be around all the people. And it's like, I need to be in LA. I literally need to be there. Like, I was calculating in my head, what kind of opportunity is this? It's just like a nice to have. You go there, there's really just like cool meeting people, hanging out, or they're real opportunities, they're for people, veterans trying to get into the gaming industry, any kind of field there. And I reached out to my good friend Michael Scott, who's a voice actor, now also voice director in LA, former military police battle buddy. Well, not my battle buddy, but he was a first sergeant in the Army, also an MPE, retired. And I was like, hey, did you hear about this event? And he's trying to get in. And I'm curious because I do this every year. But now that I know this, I can plan ahead. Okay, put this into the budget for next year. I really want to apply to get there. Doesn't mean they're going to pick me, but they seem to do this every year. And every year I also go to the Nava Gala, which happens to be the week after. So when I was calculating this, I was literally thinking, I'm flying in for a day. He was like, hey, you can stay with me if you need to save a few bucks. But flights were still $500 round trip. Then I still got to get a rental car and eat. So that would have been easy 800 to $1,000 for this opportunity. And it's like, you know what? They do this every year. Don't rush. This is, again, impulse control. 20 something year old me would have just went. 30 something year old me that has lots of responsibilities and is already investing a lot into this career, it was like, all right, we'll just do it next year. It's not going anywhere. Just keep working on your craft and, keeping your connections. But it made me think, how else can I niche myself? What else is missing? How can I get myself ready for the major markets? So on this previous episode that I had Frank on, he talked about why he chose New York for stunts over Atlanta. He didn't even have LA on his radar for specific reasons, and I found that very interesting. But my main thing is still voiceover. I got into stunts to do mocap, PCAP for video games, and I love stunts, and I totally want to be in anything and everything I can be in. I really enjoy that. On camera acting, I've stepped back a little from that. It really isn't my main goal. And after talking to a lot of people, yeah, you can be in everything, but you can't focus on everything at the same time. And I've learned that when I step back from voice acting a little bit to get my fundamentals and stunts and try to figure out what I want to do and where I want to be. And then this year, I really had to come back to work on a lot of vocal technique things that, take practice. Even though in theory how to do things, you still got to practice them and then also get feedback. So taking classes. So it's like, what? On camera was really never my goal. If it happens, fine. Especially commercials. I love commercials. They're fun. I can't wait for a commercial to come out next month, whether or not I made it into the commercial. But I love commercial auditions, and yeah, I'm totally up for it. I keep on thinking about my friend Byron, also from LA, uh, who made it into the last year's Super Bowl commercial, the Dunkin' Donuts one. I was like, man, that is so cool. I get so excited when I see my friends or hear my friends. I do recognize a lot of their voices when I hear them on network TV. Usually, like, I usually just like football. Usually, that's network TV that I watch, and to just be in it, so that's fine. But I'm really getting back into that. And so, what does that mean, LA? My boyfriend and I, we had a talk. We were like, well, what if everything ends up pulling us somewhere else, like New York? Wouldn't be the first time, would not be the first time this happened, but I really had to sit and think about this. There were twice already opportunities to live in LA throughout my whole life, and one ended up being Germany, and one ended up being New York City. And then LA always like right afterwards was like, yeah, that job's available. And I was like, well, now it's too late. And it made me think, that is that always just like where I want to be, but not where I'm supposed to be? But no, no. So even though for Everett, my boyfriend who started doing stand up comedy now almost 2 years ago, because he's always talking about it. He had started before the pandemic, before we met, and then just stopped and always tried to get into radio and had some opportunities. And I was like, just go and do it. Just like stop talking about it. You see me doing it, just do it. And he is hustling. So both markets would be great for him too, New York and LA, because there's only so much in your local market you can do, which the next, yes, it'll be on the next episode. And I talked to someone from LA, a stunt performer from LA, and talking about, you can be a big fish in a small market, and that's wonderful. That's great, especially if you have family and friends there and you love where you live, and that's fine. But some people, they just, it just feels different. It feels like you need more. It feels like you need to be somewhere else. And maybe that's at Delulu, and that's okay. We all need a little bit of delusions to have the drive and get what we want. And that 5 year plan back then is now 18 months, and it was okay getting ready to move to LA, which that kind of came about, well, yeah, being ready skill wise, obviously, being able to support ourselves, our family, and where the kids are at that stage. So my stepdaughter will be graduating from high school, and my son will be done with middle school. But especially with the kid who's still in school, a kid who does very well, takes advanced classes, is already taking high school level classes in middle school, and has a dream wanting to go to the Naval Academy to be a pilot. I want to make sure, I set him up for success. Don't always pull him out of areas where something could happen, and then maybe his grades go down, or there are kids that treat him a certain way and his attitude changes. So I have to think, as a mom of a teenager who also has a dream and who's working towards his dream, to make sure it still aligns with that too. So sometimes, that was one of the choices. It's like, well, maybe in New York in some way is better. He can move around a lot. That's where technically his dad is from. Doesn't live there right now, but a place that's kind of like Germany, can just take the train and go places and be out and about. Plus, he kind of enjoys a little bit of cold, even though he would learn fast. I mean, there might be some snow, but New York City is still a city. It'll turn into brown gush of dirt and just a bunch of ice. But I realized, no, I really know what I want to do. And maybe it is harder to get into stunts in LA, but you do also hear from some people from Miami or whatever that went and they did well. The right connections, the right attitude, and knowing what you want really gets you there. So my goals have to be extra tight, because now, speaking of goals for next year, if we're a year and a half out, I need to have a lot accomplished or know where I'm at to decide by next year if within another half year we are going to be able to make that move. So for Everett to get a job will be the easiest. For me, not as much. We really have to make good money. Also planning, looking at the markets, would we be able to buy? And surprisingly, where we live right now is way harder to buy than it is in LA. Even if maybe some places technically cost the same, we have those homeowners associations that have fees from like 400 to upwards $600-700 a month on top of your mortgage and everything else you got to pay. So that is like a whole nother like room, that you're basically paying for in terms of if we need it instead of a 3 bedroom, a 4 bedroom. So yeah, there's a lot that goes into that. So for me, I was like, all right, let's get back to what can I do. Um, Side hustle, something that's still in the industry. I love a lot of things about it. I love audio engineering. I got into that a couple of years ago. I did the level one, level two audio engineering thing, and I wanted to do an internship somewhere here at a studio, but working full time, that just didn't work out. But something I do have a background in is localization. So I have a associate's degree in foreign languages, which that's, you know, not a bachelor's or a master's for that certain field, but it was the beginning step of understanding what it's like. Yeah, you're bilingual, but can you translate and understand? And when I went to school for that, I was 16 to 18. I didn't enjoy it so much. I wasn't that great at a lot of the things, especially translating in or out of the language are also different things. But this was when I lived in Germany. Now that I've lived and worked and studied and got my bachelor's and master's here in the United States, it's very different. So I do want to get my ATA certification, and that is a certification for translators. It has an 80% fail rate. When you look it up, it's the typical thing though. Somebody who's maybe, I was going to say biracial, but bilingual, or somebody who just got done with school and they're like, oh, I can translate. Translating is not localizing. It's not the same thing. You can't word for word just translate something. And I've localized when I worked at Noom. I was a health coach and got into the project management and then became the knowledge and localization manager for the German language department, Germany, Austria, Switzerland. And I worked together with my Spanish counterpart. So we were covering all of the content that goes into the app and around the app, and for the coaches into our language. And so we had to learn a lot about what localization means. And my friend Nydia was the Spanish counterpart to me. We ended up taking a transcreation course by TOS, and TOS doesn't even offer that anymore. So I feel so grateful that they had that, because transcreation goes around that. So with translating and localizing, so you translate word for word, localize, you have to make some changes to things like, oh, maybe there isn't a McDonald's, what's like a similar thing to there, or a celebrity that might not be very well known in this country kind of change. But then transcreation might mean you have to change a lot more about the humor and the style to really make it feel authentic. And where does that happen? A lot with authenticity and maybe making some changes, video games. So if I want to get into that, working with studios, um, localizing content, and I saw you can do the QA as well, in the bugs and the games, and finding those things, and then that could lead into subtitling. That's just a huge field. So it gives me a year to really get in the door, in total 18 months to be like, all right, can I support myself while hopefully by then also making more money in the field I've been investing in, doing stunts and voice acting. And that is the goal. So it gives me much passion and drive knowing this is a high stakes year. Because if by next year we're like, all right, this industry is still way too slow, it's not stable enough, we're not going to be able to afford that move that also costs money. Even we might be able to afford a house. One of my friends was telling me about an area that I was kind of checking out, and I was like, I don't know, but they seem to have houses available at a price range that if we made what we make now, we would be paying what we pay for rent here, maybe even a little less. um, and that would be amazing. I would just have to have the income. And like I said, not too worried about my partner's income. He should be able to adjust well. So it should be an interesting year. So, did I achieve everything I wanted this year? Mostly. Interesting enough how it works with manifestation too. You put out there, what you want to do, and then other people somehow come into your life that have to do with the thing that you want to do. Certain classes and workshops and opportunities. Like I was talking with Frank on the last episode, like, oh my God, this year I was like, I really want to hone in that tactical, because I heard on one of the episodes on film Fights with Friends, they were talking about when people want to get into stunts, why do you want to get in and what is your thing? And mine was always my military background, but you always have to practice that too, your tactical skills, the verbiage, you know, everything. Everything. I can't just look like it. I have the look and that's it. And so I got a new firearm. I'm working on that, tactical training, and then something I really wanted to do because it's just so badass when we talk about it, fire burns. I ended up doing that, and then there was this posting for exactly that. So yeah, now that time is going by, how it works in the industry, and that shoot days are nearing the end. It looks like I didn't end up getting into this specific film, but I know I was considered, and that's a really big step, and knows I'm going the right direction with the type that I am, what I like to do, and how I might be able to stand out. There's so much out of our control, though. My height, my look, maybe my skin color, maybe there's someone else who is similar or too different, or I'm a woman and they need 5 men for this scene. So that's okay. That's okay. I'm on the radar. And this next year is going to be all about boom, 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 really getting back into voice acting, um, really networking harder than usual. And networking really is different now than it was 1, 2, 3, 4 years ago. I talk about this. I think we talk about this on the next episode too. You seem so like eager and desperate and wanting to get in because you do want something from someone, which Frank on the last episode does talk about. Like, yeah, no, you do want something from someone. And you're like, yeah, but there is such a fine line between that. And I get it. I get it. Just be cool with people. And I do realize I can feel a vibe, and some people immediately, I just would feel we're on the same vibe. I want to be chill. Obviously, it would be cool if we worked together or I got an opportunity through you, but that's not, doesn't become the main focus like it maybe used to be. And some people I do want to work with where maybe we're not on the same vibe, and for that, I'm just going to have to keep doing what I'm doing, work hard, and hope they notice me one day. And that really is the difference. So, networking, but right. So when I say go hard networking, it really just means being in the rooms. I'm somebody who does well in the rooms, and as a stack of paper on a resume or just another social media page or a submission, there's hundreds and thousands. I might not stand out, but I know I do well in the room. I know who I am and my personality and how I connect with people on a personal level. So that for me just means getting into rooms. And I need to plan that out and skilling up. So I just started taking courses with MemoQ, which reminded me a lot about working with Deep L for localization and translating, because you have all the language and word that databases and some of the QA you do. And yesterday was talking about there are these like little dots that show spaces, and there's like this P, for like every line, so that you can really see you don't have double spaces or you're missing a space, which it sounds ridiculous, but when you work with words so much, you can overlook these small things, especially when you worked on an app. You like look at it, preview it, and you're like, that didn't look right. And if you had that feature on, you can kind of see how it's going to turn out, and it saves a lot of time. So there's a bunch of things between subtitling softwares and translator softwares. Every studio and some studios don't hire people directly, they go via third party. They might use different things, so I have to learn about different platforms and softwares. So that's going to be it. I also had ChatGPT practice with me. I was like, hey, pretend you're the ATA and I'm going for my certification. Judge me just like they would. And it was really cool because you actually don't get a score. It's just pass or fail. And I said, do it for both languages, German into English, English into German. And it's so interesting because I've been here so much longer. And like I said, the vocabulary and things I deal with day to day and some of the phrases and stuff just comes to you faster. I speak German to my son, my mom, my sister, and my friends on the phone whenever we Zoom in or whatever. But my day to day and professional life is more English. So the first one, I translated English into German. It was fine. It said I would have probably passed. Maybe borderline on some of the stuff. I didn't catch every little spelling mistake, and some stuff was maybe too literal, or I got too lax, relaxed with some of the things. It didn't stay quite in the tone. But I noticed from German to English, it was way faster. And I was like, ooh, that means exactly that. And I was able to really translate it. And it really would be like, oh, good job on this one right here. And then also I had one critical mistake, and this happens sometimes at words that sound very similar, but they actually don't mean the same, and that's how they will trip you up. And I did feel like it still brought the point across using it, but I could tell how that was the trap that was set, and that could also mean the borderline pass. And those certifications are pretty expensive, and yeah, you might not need it, but it'll be really nice. I love getting certifications, and I love working towards something where I see an end. When I make my little sheets, I notice that I'm always going back to school for something, always. Like until I went to the United States when I was 19, I had just graduated. I graduated from German high school at 16, and then I got that associate's degree, and then I went back to school for like a higher level kind of high school thing. It's complicated if you're not German. So then I came to the United States, and then I enrolled into a community college, but then I moved to Detroit. But then when I was in Detroit and joined the military, I did then finally sign back up for starting a bachelor's in psychology, tried to get that done before my deployment to get a certain amount of credits so I can go to officer candidate school. But then because I was at Fort Drum and they didn't have any internet during my pre-deployment, I had to drop out of some of the classes, didn't make the credits on time. Long story short, yeah, I got back from Iraq and I was still a specialist. My contract ended. There was a bunch of BS. I was like, all right, I'm not re-enlisting. I'm just going to go to school. Went to school for TCM, but then a lot happened. I moved to Germany, tried to become a Heilpraktiker there, which is like a special way to treat people holistically where there isn't real regulations. I think this comes from like either World War One or two, where they established that. But because anybody can try to go for their license with, again, a very high failure rate, obviously, because you don't need any formal education to get this license, they make it very, very hard to make sure that people actually did get education so they can do it. It was like a 3-year waiting list. And I was like, well, I'm just gonna go back to school, get my bachelor's, and what could I do? Should it be psychology or should it kind of be more in the health field? And then someone that my mom knew that was a professor was like, well, maybe don't do psychology if you're not going further than the bachelor's. Won't really help you in Germany. So I did health science, which had a lot of nutritional things, fitness, in there. So, a lot of those things ended up not really helping me with anything either. So when I went back for my master's degree, only about a couple years later, or whatever, when I started that, I went back to the field that I originally always wanted to do, which was psychology. And I graduated with that degree in January 2021. So it's about to be January 2026. So 5 years ago. I love to learn. And even though on this last one I cried so much because it just ended up being so much, I'm like, man, I could have gotten my doctorate if I just would have taken it slow. I was like, by now I could have that. I'm like, darn it. But yeah, in the future, when my son's out the door and my life feels like I'm in a great place, I will. I will. That is on my bucket list, has been on my bucket list for when I retired. Maybe in my retirement, who knows? I don't care. I will get my doctorate, before it's the end. To end. But these are the goals. This is what I gotta do. And To some people, it might sound crazy. Some people, it might not make sense. But I need that drive. I need to learn. I need to feel, to have this purpose that I'm doing something for a reason. And I can't wait to see where I am next year, because who knows what opportunities show up and where they show up. But the goal as of right now is to get ready to decide by next year, are we going to be ready to move to LA by summer of 2027? Or what might it look like? So it should be an interesting year. If you want to keep knowing how that goes, stay with me, stay tuned. But that made me think about how this whole podcast originally started, and it got me really excited because my hair is straight right now, because last weekend I finally got a Japanese hair treatment again, and it's always so scary to go to a new person. But like I said, if you move all the time and trying to figure things out, to find a person to trust. And he was first scared. I was like, I've been doing this for like 14, 15 years. I know how my hair is and what works and doesn't work. And I come off very intense. He's like, do you know it all? I was like, no, I just want to make sure it comes out right. And these are the things that usually don't work. And it ended up coming out great. This is probably the best one I've ever gotten. The one I got in Germany was actually really, really good too, but it took a little longer and a little more, um, you know, trials to see if it was ready, and just hour wise, this guy, he was just like psh, psh, psh. We went through it and it was perfect. Bunch of tests, and his technique was great. I can only recommend, if you want to know who it was and you live in Florida or kind of the Tampa area, hit me up. I'll let you know who it is. It was great. So I got that. And the second step for getting ready for the Nava Gala, which I don't know if there will be another episode before I go to LA in less than 2 weeks. Today, in 2 weeks, the Nava Gala would be over. And right about now, I'd be getting ready to go to a holiday party for veterans in media and entertainment. But I'm going to get extensions, and I'm going to get those next weekend. Hopefully everything works. It looks like the color is a perfect match, and texture as of right now looks fine. So I'm going to put 2 rows in to just make it a little fuller and just a little bit longer. So this will be my first time. So these are just, problems of a mixed girl navigating hair. I was really frustrated. I was literally crying because my hair was it was just so bad. This like whole inch and a half that goes on my baby hair area on top of my forehead and the neck was just so stiff, so dry, so brittle. No matter what I put in, if it was a wax holding gel, any kind of soothing, no matter how expensive, or cabinet stuff, oils, nothing would stay back. And especially when I was sweating, going to jiu-jitsu or the gym, I just felt like I looked like a bum and like I didn't care, and it really made me really frustrated because I do care, and I try a lot and it doesn't work. So that was initially, can people relate to all of those things, and what kind of solutions do I have? So that makes this episode a full circle moment. But yes, the next episode, maybe the next 2, depending on how it works. Maybe I'll record an episode while I'm in LA. Will be another stunt talk. So stay tuned. It was nice talking to you. See you in the next episode.